Okay, I think we'll call this finance,
Sorry.
we'll call this finance meeting in order. And one member's said it'd be at the council, but he couldn't make this meeting. So we still have the quorum. And draft minutes from January 14th. Any changes or anything?
So we need
Looks good to me.
a motion
Wait,
first.
Motion to approve.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
A second. Any changes? Looks good to you? It was okay with me? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Next is public appearance, non-agenda items. If it's on the agenda, we'll get to it. I think we're good there. Okay, next will be the finance director's report.
So first of all, included in the packet are the November and the December treasurer's report. You'll notice that the November report is the traditional report you always see. The December report is actually just the first few pages, the investments, because at this point, we're really trying to close the year and there's a lot of moving pieces at this point, so I didn't want to provide financial statements that were not closed yet. So you'll see final numbers when the audit is done, but at least wanted to get out the investment balances so you had that information that will not change as closing procedures continue. Other than that, property taxes is our big thing right now. As you know, the first installment due date is this Friday. So we're pretty busy right now as people are starting to come in to make that payment. And then after Friday, everything goes to Dane County. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's it.
Good. Okay. Okay, then we'll go to number 5, review of bills. The first one is the checks for $10,000 and above. They're dated January 1st through the 15th of this year. And the total is $1,122,459.30. Any changes or anything? Or notice anything? Okay, I don't either. The next group is all checks issued 1-20156 through 1-20251. These are dated 1/1/20 through 1/15/20. That total is $1,277,965.68. Any comments about those?
No questions.
Anything
comments.
special? Okay. Next will be the action items. The first one is number 1. This is ordinance, it's 2020-0-4, amending Chapter 10 of Article 3, Division 4 of the Fitchburg General Code of Ordinance to create a license and regulation framework for short-term rentals and creating a penalty for violations thereof. So you need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay. I know we had,
And just for discussion's sake, I think this is probably what most people would refer to as Airbnb.
sometimes I like to do, Misty or Pat, your comments first. We have some people that want to talk, but sometimes that you answer questions for them if there's a little question out there. And I like to, I know everybody does it different, but I kind of like to do that first because of the fact there's a.
Thank you, Tom. Basically, what this is would be an opportunity via ordinance to create a license and regulation framework for short-term rentals. We're going to have Valerie at the council meeting. She should be able to speak to this in more detail. But this would allow for anybody that decides to run this type of operation to get licensed through the city. It would be inspected by our building inspectors. And then it would have various requirements, one of which it must be their primary residence. So the individual must live there over 50% of the time during the year. Currently, this is being regulated by the county, but this would be an additional step in the process that would require anybody in Fitchburg to register at City Hall. We do receive, and Misty can speak to this, we do receive a small room tax benefit from this, from the people that do register via the county. We do have some interesting dynamics involved with that, since all of our zip codes are shared with the city of Madison. It is a little difficult to make sure that we are getting our fair share, but it's something that we're working on at the staff level.
And so to piggyback off of that, so from a finance committee perspective, that room tax is a consideration in this. So right now, Airbnb or whatever other short-term rental organization is helping with these, is required to remit room tax to the municipalities. We actually aren't getting any currently, and I think part of the problem is because there's that disconnect with the zip code. So the one benefit to this from a financial perspective would be I will now have a list of all of the ones in Fitchburg that we can follow up with Airbnb and say, these are the ones that you need to make sure you're giving us the room tax for.
Yep. And the key again is, we're trusting that these people that, or these families, individuals that are running these operations will register with the city and with the county. It doesn't happen all the time, from what I've been told.
Okay. We have two individuals who'd like to speak tonight, I believe, on this. So we'll take these two first. If you would just, whoever, come up here when you want to. Jay Hockworth, I'll let you. Jay's a Fitchburg resident, obviously, but I'll let you introduce yourself
Jay, can you
again.
go
If
to
you,
the end there? Yeah,
if
thank
you'd
you.
be so kind, just to introduce yourself again, and you can tell us what you think.
Hello, my name is Jay Hockmuth. I've lived in Fitchburg for 33 years. I live in Seminole Forest, and I'm here tonight to just share a couple of comments. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion tonight. I think Fitchburg should be applauded for attempting to enact a reasonable regulatory framework for these short-term rentals. In Seminole Forest last summer, there was a very unfortunate situation that developed where somebody bought a property. It was very attractive for particularly weekend rentals, and they really created a lot of bad will with neighbors and kind of abused the property. The people who owned it did not live in it, and they bought it for the purposes of the short-term rental. So that kind of precipitated an effort on the part of the Seminole Forest Neighborhood Association to amend our deed covenants to have restrictions with respect to the uses of the properties in the Seminole Forest neighborhood. And those restrictions have now been approved by a majority of the property owners and will be eventually going into effect in the near future. I have some comments that I'd like to hand out. These are from Mr. Michael Ercito. He's the president of the Seminole Forest Neighborhood Association. He can't be here tonight, he's out of state, but he did ask me to be sure that members of this committee had a copy of these comments. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but they provide more information about why Seminole Forest proceeded to do what they did. The one point that I would like to make, and I'm sorry it took me a while to follow up on this, have an inquiry with the city attorney, but my review of the ordinance suggests that there's nothing in the ordinance that would prohibit a neighborhood association to adopt more restrictive covenants than those set forth in the ordinance. And I'm just here to emphasize that I hope that's the case. I realize that, there may be something in there that we missed, but we, again, applaud Fitchburg for doing what they're doing, and we'd like to have the ability in our neighborhood to do something perhaps more restrictive. I mean, we understand that, and we don't have a problem with these situations as long as they're properly regulated and they're operating on a good neighbor principle. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Next, we have Laura Olson. Laura, it's just for the record, would you just introduce yourself and your address?
Yes, My name is Laura Olson. I live at 2958 Greencrest Court. I've been a Fitchburg resident since 2001. I've prepared a 3-minute statement to talk about my experience living immediately adjacent to the short-term rental that was just referenced by our prior speaker. I am in favor of some degree of proposed ordinances on short-term rental licenses and regulation. I realize that the language is still being developed. There are different versions of the proposed ordinances I know floating around, some with more stringent requirements than others, and I know that'll probably have to be ironed out. For the past 26 years, I've worked as a legal research librarian at a large national law firm, and I very keenly appreciate the complexities of the developing and intersecting state, county, and local legal requirements relating to short-term rentals. I applaud the city for its proactive approach in proposing an ordinance designed to balance the needs of various constituents. I think most of us who are in support of this ordinance don't oppose short-term rentals. We were pretty fiery at our meeting last summer. I know you remember that, Administrator. And I think we've toned down a little bit and realized that Airbnbs can be a great thing. I think many of us have stayed in an Airbnb, but we do think there needs to be a balance to protect all of the constituents. My purpose of being here tonight is based on my direct personal experience living immediately adjacent to a short-term rental in the Seminole Forest neighborhood. I'd like to share with you what my neighbors and I experienced over the last 5 months to give you a firsthand appreciation to why these proposed ordinances are important. In March 2019, the home next to my home was purchased by a family owning multiple short-term rentals. They did not use the home as their primary residence. They marketed their home as accommodating up to 16 guests at a time. The very first rental weekend, we witnessed increased traffic, loud car doors, noise, trash in the street, etc. Each and every weekend for a 5-month period, we dealt with a different group of renters and experienced the same recurring issues on our formerly quiet cul-de-sac: increased noise, traffic, trash, and a transient feel to our formerly peaceful circle. The cycle quickly became frustrating and completely changed the very dynamic and character of our neighborhood. To make a long story short, we endured 5 long months of party weekends each and every weekend until we were able to exert enough pressure on the homeowners to sell. The situation was a true emotional drain, and it impeded our ability to enjoy our weekends at home. As I've often said, if I wanted to live next to a Holiday Inn, I would have bought a house next to a Holiday Inn. I feel I owe it to the Fitchburg residents to share my story and forewarn what can happen when short-term rentals are unlicensed and unregulated. In addition to the inconvenience this caused all residents of our circle, I believe the renters were also at risk. The home was not initially registered with county health, was rented to more people than the home could safely accommodate, and the pool and hot tub were not in accordance with county health department guidelines. Some neighborhoods have restricted covenants that can be modified to prevent short-term rentals. Our neighborhood, as was indicated, has recently modified our covenants to prohibit such rental practices. Not all neighborhoods in Fitchburg have this option or the deep pockets that require that. We spent considerable money, time, and effort on that change. Calling the police each and every time a short-term rental situation is out of hand is not a long-term solution. They're too busy tracking down all the stolen cars. The city needs a permanent solution to balance the rights of all parties. A short-term rental in a vacation community has a very different impact on a short-term than a short-term rental in a residential community. Also, residential homes purchased solely as income properties for short-term rental and not used as a primary residence have a dramatically different neighborhood impact than owner-occupied homes used for intermittent short-term rental for periodic supplemental income. There's a big difference between the two. Opponents of the proposed ordinance, as was suggested at last week's CETA meeting, suggest that the city of Fitchburg does not need another layer of regulation, that this is a knee-jerk reaction and it's based on a few emails from Fitchburg residents, such as myself. Regulations are designed to address societal changes, including new and evolving business models, such as short-term rentals. The proposed ordinance language is not unreasonable. It's designed to balance the rights of homeowners, neighborhoods, renters, and require that rental proprietors offer safe lodging. Based on my personal experience with an adjacent short-term rental, I urge the city to enact local ordinances to protect all impacted constituents. Happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I thank you for your time.
I have one. The house totally that you talked about that was next to you, did the homeowners ever live there like for?
They did not, and they were
At all?
dishonest about that, and they were subsequently sued by the city of Waunakee in an unrelated yet similar matter, and the address used in that lawsuit was not their Fitchburg address. It was their Waunakee address, which was their primary residence, and they were sneaky and dishonest about their primary residence.
Wow. Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, speaker.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
preparation.
Do you have any questions? I'm just going into questions right now. I have a couple.
On this,
Yeah. I wasn't involved with the committee. Actually, it was a situation where Janelle and I talked about this due to the fact that I let her run with the ball and I had plenty on my plate to do. So we kind of let her do that. But my question is, did this go to CETA? What was the vote and what other committee did this go to besides CETA? Maybe there wasn't any.
So I know CETA acted on it last week, and
Okay.
Mike Zimmerman's here if you'd like a more thorough recap on what happened, but ultimately it ended up being, I believe, a 3-2 vote. Concerns about the level of regulation that were
Okay.
there. I heard that it's also at public safety tonight.
Yes, I'm going to sneak out and go to that in 10
Yep.
minutes.
And then obviously finance, and I believe it's for action tonight at council.
Mhm.
Okay. The other question I had, and I didn't see this, well, it could have gone on and I just missed it. Pat, if I own a home and I want to go Airbnb, is there a restriction on the period of time, like I can only do it for 6 months, or can I do it for weekends? Mike, I mean, what's the deal on the time period?
Local ordinances vary on this, but this requires, our ordinance requires that the family that owns the home, it's their primary residence, that they live there in that home over 50% of the time. So actually, the number of days are outlined in the draft ordinance that was written by our city attorney. So it would be restricted to at least that. And I believe there's some additional restrictions in there too that Valerie will speak to at the city council meeting.
so a couple of questions that I had on that one. And I did see how we addressed the timing, so I know it's, if you split the year in half, we rounded it off that day, so it's just.
Extra day, yeah.
Yeah. Have we defined how many, for example, if you had a 4-bedroom, that you could have 3 of those bedrooms be part of an Airbnb? Have we given any structure around occupancy?
Well, the structure around occupancy is it would have to require with all the safety requirements that our building inspection would require. So if there was bedrooms in the basement, it would require egress in each and every one of the bedrooms. It would require, all the safety components that are required in homes. So in terms of restriction of number of bedrooms, that would be based, the number of residents or rooms to be used, that would be based on the number of bedrooms.
Got it. How are we addressing noise and things of that nature? I'm assuming that that's something that's part of an overriding theme that we would find within the city anyways. And so whatever is appropriate in that space is going to be consistent with how we would enforce those factors?
That's correct. Any sort of noise violation, any sort of situation where there's a potential nuisance, that would be handled by our police department.
I'm assuming that we've given some consideration to if we have a neighbor that appears to be doing an Airbnb, and a neighbor finds out that they are not licensed with the city, have we figured out how we're gonna handle those requests?
Not to my knowledge. Basically, right now, this is a self-reporting requirement of the property owner. It would obviously be clear. It was clear in the neighborhood that the 2 speakers talked about earlier where it was occurring. I think it would be clear in most situations, but sometimes maybe in a smaller house where just 1 bedroom was being rented, it may not be as clear. So it's a very difficult situation to police for the city. We definitely don't have the staff to go out there and check on all these situations, but we do want to be responsive to complaints of our residents.
And that's kind of really where I'm going with that. I realize that the team is busy with more pressing matters. As you heard Tom say, Tom and I kind of looked at this when it came front and center and decided that we would do a little bit of a divide and conquer on it. And so I met with Michael Aracito, I met with the mayor, I listened to the neighbors, and I'll talk more in length about it at the Common Council meeting. And, I think my point here is twofold. I'm delighted, I'm absolutely delighted to see this on the agenda. When I think about what these people went through and not having really a mechanism for us to get involved and put some teeth behind it, for us to have some things in place, I think I'm just pleased to see it. And behind that, to give folks the opportunity to say, I don't think that this is happening, and so they can self-govern and feel like there's an opportunity to bring things forward. I think our public servants were doing everything that they could. We just didn't have a framework to address this, and so it created a lot of frustration. So I'm looking forward to see this go forward.
Thank you.
I guess I want to make,
Done.
done. I'd like to hear from Mike, but I'm going to push that to the city council because there's no reason to hear him now and then hear him again maybe. So I'd like to hear what CETA had to say, but let's push that to the city council. I'm not overlooking it. And you did say there's another committee that has it at this hour.
Public safety is actually listening to, they begin their meeting at 7 p.m. I
Okay,
believe.
so they have it, so we'll hear from them. So that will come up at the council level. I have some more comments, but we'll wait. I just as soon move it over to the council then at this point, if that's okay with you.
I'm
I mean,
good with that.
so,
Is the motion to defer to council or approve?
No.
I'm good approving.
Okay.
Right
I
now, the
think
motion on the
original
floor
was
is to approve.
To approve, yeah.
I think-
we'll leave it the way it was.
Yep.
I
Because
just
it's
meant
really
more
the financial
speakers, my fault.
framework.
That's
What's
just
gonna come next is
more
gonna be something
speakers.
else.
But that was,
And from
Yeah.
the finance perspective, there's the room tax element of it, making sure, or trying to put in a framework where we can get the payment that we're supposed to get.
Yep.
So from a protocol perspective, I'm assuming that hypothetically that this didn't pass, that would dissolve our action anyways.
Correct. This
At
is-
council, you mean it didn't pass?
Correct.
Correct. Yep. This is just a recommendation.
Yep.
it was my bad statement, but we'll just move along with voting on it tonight. And I believe it was moved and seconded. I don't have anything further at this point, do you? On this
Do
one,
we need to vote?
or no?
We still need to vote. Yep.
We're going to
We
vote.
need to vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Next is resolution, it's R 1420, amending the 2020 fee schedule to create an annual fee for the short-term rental license. This is associated with the first one. I need a motion.
Motion to approve, no questions, no comments.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Next one will be approving the Second Amendment to agreement for subdivision improvements for the Terra Vista. This was postponed from January 14th of this year. I missed that, it's resolution R 178-19. I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion seconded, staff.
So this is, we have some storm sewer issues at the Terra Vista development, and we wanted to get an extended warranty to warranty those storm sewer issues. We think that they're not problematic, but we just wanted to protect the city's interests, so that was part of this amendment, was to get an extended warranty for 5 years for that storm sewer. Also, originally in the agreement, it was the developer was gonna install the signals. We got pricing, we weren't satisfied with that pricing. So now we're gonna look at installing the signals next year, we're gonna bid them out, or this year, I guess it's this year already. So we're taking that requirement off the developer, putting it on the city. It'll still be the same cost share split, 50% county, 25% city, 25% developer. And then with that, we had to change the phasing because the phasing was tied to the developer installing those signals, so it was just correcting that. So that's basically it in a nutshell what this amendment entails.
So I'm assuming it sounds like it's a zero for everything except for the warranty, insurance, whatever you want to refer to that as. Everything else is a zero budget impact?
Correct.
It's included in the CIP.
And it, yeah,
In the
there
budget.
was already budgeted.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that there's an additional cost that goes along with this insurance coverage that we're looking at?
They have to provide surety for the amount, if they didn't heal. They're very superficial cracks, so most of them we feel are gonna heal, if not all, but they have to provide surety coverage, so if they don't, that we could, if they won't do the repairs, we could go in and use that surety to do the repairs.
Mike, is there a budget impact on this?
Not besides getting that surety, so not for the city.
I think I know where the signals are going, but there's one signal going over there, right? Stop and go light, whatever signal, and then that's at where?
That's Lacey and MM for Terravessa, and then there is another set of signals that we're looking at down the road on MM and McCoy. It's not related to Terravessa.
Do you know where you come off of Highway 14 and you come off of Highway 14 going east and you stop on MM there? Is there a signal at that location too in the future? Do we know?
That's McCoy.
Or you consider that
That,
before?
I consider that McCoy. I believe that's what he's talking about, is where you
You're
come
new,
off 14
you're
right
new.
there. Yeah,
That's right.
that
You're
is
new.
that location.
Gotcha. We're in the same. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anything else?
No?
I don't. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was approved. Next will be Resolution R210-19, approving the 2020-2022 venture debt funding participation between the Madison Development Corp. and the City of Madison.
Motion to approve.
Okay. And
We do have Mike Zimmerman here.
second it. Tell us about this, Mike. Okay.
Sure. This is a program that Mike Zimmerman, Economic Development Director for the City of Fitchburg. This is a loan program that we've been a part of since 2004 with the Madison Development Corporation. We initially capitalized a revolving loan fund through Tax Increment District Number 3, which is the Fitchburg Business Park where Oak Bank is located, a very successful TID that I think closed out in 10 years. So it was a $375,000 kind of grant from the TID district to the city to CETA to administer. And then in 2004, when we were doing the Fitchburg Tech Campus here, we decided that we wanted to kind of segregate some of those dollars specifically for science and tech companies. And we found out that the Madison Development Corporation was looking at a similar program at the regional level. So instead of us recreating the wheel here, we could not replicate the amount of capital that we can access that they could from participating with regional banks and MG&E and other entities that are in their participation list. So we launched that program. It's been, I think, very positive for us. We funded companies, everybody from Pegasus Sustainability, now PEGX, Keo, Intuitive Biosciences, Semba. We did have one loss that we took with Gentel Biosciences, but we've also had a windfall from an equity investment that was in Mirus Biosciences as part of being part of the loan portfolio there. So it's been helpful for us with business development and companies taking additional space in our new venture center buildings there. We've got another small company that's looking to access the program. So this is just a renewal of our agreement with them. It's kind of a rolling 3 years because they have different loan amounts and different participation levels that come forward. If you notice on the, I don't know if it's in your packet there, but Oak Bank is in the pool of investors. We've got Park Bank in there, Madison Gas and Electric, so a lot of our private sector partners, and they only tap into our money when it's a Fitchburg company, and then we leverage that larger pool of regional capital.
And Mike, they approved this at CETA, correct?
Yes, yes, this was a 3-2 vote at CETA. I think a couple of folks thought maybe this was a grant program, but it's really a loan program, and the companies pay a minimum of, I think, prime plus 2. But they're as the name of the program suggests, venture debt. They're in unique circumstances from a financing standpoint, and this is some important capital for some of those smaller science and tech
What was
companies.
it? Seat Mike 3-2?
3-2, yeah. The other benefit,
Why did somebody vote against it?
like I said, I think some people felt that, yeah, maybe just the mechanics of the program, or maybe we need to give them some more information, on it. But the other good thing about this group is they have a financial underwriting committee that is constitute a representative from financial institutions. And the other significant benefit that we couldn't replicate is they have a science and tech underwriting group, and it's comprised of people from the science world and IT world to vet the intellectual property of these companies, that it's kind of good risks to take as far as the IP involved with the company.
And then
Question?
council approves each one of the loan applications as well. That goes through MPC.
In the
but
end,
they-
yeah,
but
it
it's
flows through
when it's our
CETA and
money.
then through the finance department. Mm-hmm.
What's with the dates, Misty? It seems 2020 to 2022. Is it every couple of years, or is that, has to be rechecked or something?
Every 3 years.
Every
it is that they
usually
go through
3
the
years.
Three?
renewal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just go there.
So this is basically a master agreement that's up for review. We've got a number of moving parts that we formally vet out as far as specific entities, what they're asking for, when those entities are to a point where they finish that process or final phases, it comes for us as a specific scope, and this is the overriding umbrella on the program.
For financing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And we have a Fitchburg representative on the loan committee, and that representative is Dan Hardy from CETA.
Okay.
No questions, no comments.
Anything further? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is Resolution R 0120, a resolution authorizing payment to Dane County for monthly court assessments. Motion.
Sorry,
Moved,
sleeping behind
moved and
Motion to
seconded.
approve.
Misty?
So when we collect citations from the municipal court, there's a piece of it that we are required to give to Dane County and a piece of it that we are required to give to the state. So the next two resolutions really are a purchasing process efficiency thing where we bring you the full amount for the year that we expect that will pass through based on trends, and then it allows us to make those payments as required.
No questions, no discussion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next will be resolution, it's our 02-20, resolution authorizing payment to the state of Wisconsin for monthly court assessments.
Motion to approve.
To approved and seconded. Misty, you're gonna tell me something the same.
Same thing except the state. Mhm.
No questions, no comment.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Next is resolution, it's R 12-20, authorizing to proceed with the replacement of a fire department squad. Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
It's moved, seconded. Misty or Chief? Whatever.
Chief.
Yeah, so this is part of our capital improvements project to replace a 20-year-old vehicle. I have members of the squad replacement committee available if there's any questions, but I can briefly outline what we tried to do. The instructions to the committee were pretty simple. Let's stay under budget, and let's only purchase the equipment that we will use. So what they were able to do is they were actually able to come up with a plan to use some existing equipment to be able to transfer portions of the vehicle over to include the power block and glide the engine, the power block over to the new chassis. That said, we were looking at an approximate $750,000 squad if we bought it brand new. But by taking these control mechanisms, we were able to control that cost to about $609,000. Now, if we pay like we've paid in the past with 100% prepayment, we are able to get that price down by about $22,000 to to the cost of $587,728. So, well within our budget, utilizing equipment that is reusable and replacing that equipment that has aged over the past 20 years.
So how do making those changes affect our warranty, not knowing the details of what we're going through?
So from a warranty standpoint, everything that's brand new, the chassis and so forth, the warranted similarly. The engine will carry with it a modified warranty because of the fact that we're utilizing existing equipment, but they are overhauling it. So there are certain things along that line that are not necessarily carried over as if it was a brand new vehicle, but there are similarities.
So if we were gonna take a look at a window, what's our normal warranty on a new vehicle?
About a year. Actually, what they equate with Pierce is about 14 months. It gives you 2 months to put it in service, and then a year after that. And this, just for a basic overview, this is basically our toolbox. This is the one that goes on technical rescue, auto extrications, those types of things. And what this committee was able to do is take the equipment that we have used regularly on our responses and put that into effect on this project without purchasing equipment that hasn't necessarily been used.
So how long do we normally keep these vehicles again?
The squad and the truck, the aerial, have been about 20-year replacements. We're looking at about a 15-year window on this one because of the fact that it is reutilizing equipment that already exists. But that's a 15-year reevaluation. That's where we look at it, see how it's doing, and whether we can keep it in inventory.
So this particular one's getting pulled into schedule about 5 years earlier than it normally would be?
No, this is a 20-year-old vehicle.
Okay, got it. So if we're going ahead and we're, for practical purposes, reusing certain components, what happens if those components fail in a shorter window than we anticipated?
Well, what we've realized with the equipment that we have is that it's worn well. If I can make a comment on the history of this equipment, by putting it through its paces and actually refurbing the existing equipment, we expect to get the same out of it.
I'm done.
I know Alder Clouder will appreciate the fact that this was the very first green apparatus that we had on the line.
Are you sure you want to get rid of it?
No, this is one of our
This probably
primary
goes-
pieces of equipment that are used.
This probably
quite
goes back to
regularly.
Herman Pond.
No, this doesn't, not unless you
Yeah,
want it
quite
white.
different.
If you want a
Quite
white engine.
White?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good try, yeah, okay. No, I'm good. Anything else?
Is this gonna be a sentimental decision for you?
No, I'm good, I'm
Just
good,
check.
I can handle it, I can handle it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Next will be Resolution R 113-20, resolution authorizing a cost-sharing agreement with the City of Madison for reconstruction of North Fish Hatchery Road. Need a motion. We got the motion, seconded. Staff.
Mike, it's been a long time since we've seen you.
It has. So this is part of the Fish Hatchery Road project, and this is a mechanism for us to be able to collect for improvements that are outside our jurisdiction. These would be for the improvements at Greenway Cross that are in the city of Madison, and then they have some water and sewer utilities that are getting replaced as part of the project. So this is our mechanism to get reimbursed for those expenses.
How have we handled, the unforeseen with the City of Madison?
This is an estimate, so if there was an escalation in cost for unforeseen, if it was in their jurisdiction, it would be billed to them. If it was in their area or their corporate limits. Is that what you're asking, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. I'm leery of Madison, not you. Okay. So,
It's literally only a block.
No, it's
It's,
gonna-
it's
I know.
25% of an intersection.
Yeah, okay. He knows,
I think
he
we
knows.
talked about this in the past,
They-
but I think our percentage of
they-
investment in this is about the same percentage as the scope of work. So I'm gonna make something up and say, we're paying 1/3 of the cost of this project and 1/3 of the road is ours. Is that kind of where we're at on it, or is it more complex than that?
It's a little more complex than that. A rough estimate would say that we're actually paying for over 50% of the road, because we're only paying for eligible costs. I mean, we're only cost sharing 50/50 for eligible costs with the county, and they determine eligible costs, anything inside curb, and they don't include any utilities. So any utilities or anything outside the curb, be a sidewalk, terrace, aesthetics to the project,
Right-of-way acquisition.
right-of-way, all of that is on the city of Fitchburg.
Got it.
So we're definitely participating at a level higher than 50%.
But a piece of that is the TID paying for it,
Yeah.
of which the city only contributes about 1/3 of that TID money. So there's
Okay.
quite a few different moving parts in calculating a percentage.
If this body wishes, we can give you an estimate of the breakdown at some point in time.
I think that we've previously covered some of these pieces.
We, the hair on the back of my head is getting thin, but I'll tell you, this is the moving parts. The moving parts is City of Madison, Dane County, the City of Fitchburg. And one of those jurisdictions gave us a wheel tax that I'm definitely against. And the three people on the other side of this table know that we have to stay on top of this, at least when I'm around. When I leave, you're on your own. But this project is huge, and he knows what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Yep,
we're on top of it.
Stay on top of this one.
thank you.
Thanks for your help.
No problem.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Next is resolution, it's our 1520 resolution authorizing a one neck data center service agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second. Staff?
So this is coming to you because it's a 5-year contract. So if it would have just been for the 1 year, it would have been something we could approve administratively with the mayor. But since it's over 5 years, it's coming to you. This is the discussion we had quite a bit at the budget time.
Yep.
So this is the off-site backup of our technology information. So it's 20% would be paid for by MPSIS, which is a consortium of which we're a part of. The other 80% would be paid for by the city.
So when we originally approved this on budget, my apologies, did we approve this as a 1-year spend or a 5-year spend?
Technically, budget is only just for 1 year.
Yeah.
It'll be
So you'll
repeated.
have to keep approving it going forward.
So within the scope of that, were we assuming a 5-year spend and then this is that specific language?
So a
Or do
lot
we
of
have
the
to
items
change
in our,
this Now that we're going, is this a change to transition to in fact a 5-year term?
not exactly.
Okay.
So a lot of the things that we approve at budget time are assumed to be continuing as we go forward, whether or not we have a 5-year contract or not. So this is really a utility bill, for example, something that we will have to continue to pay, but we are committing to the 5 years for the infrastructure piece. So it is exactly what we had contemplated at time of budget.
And if I could add to that, we're very fortunate as a city to have a state-of-the-art data center at this level within,
Stone's throw.
a stone's throw from here, and to have that facility is a great asset. They allowed the connection at no cost, and this is just the service agreement moving forward for the storage of this information. So a great partner to the community.
Yeah, this facility is unbelievable. I supported it because I also think that there is a certain level of risk that we have as a city, and not to be derisive towards our team, we've got a great team, but we don't want that held together with duct tape and super glue, which is, I feel like we were kind of running a little long on the investments that we had in place, and there was some risk behind that. Nothing else from me.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next one is resolution, it's our 1620, resolution authorizing 2020 through 2024 MAM SWAP intergovernmental agreement.
Motion to approve.
Seconded, staff.
So this is an agreement we have with, it's a consortium of about 21 communities around the Madison area. As part of our stormwater permit or MS4 permit, we're required to do education and outreach as far as stormwater goes. And this consortium, we all kind of bind together and they help us fulfill that commitment, that permit requirement. So this is the contract to have them do that. I can name off all the communities that participate, but it's just more economical for one group to be doing it all, you know, kind of a coerced effort, you know, combined effort, so. And I think we started this in 2009 with this group. So it's been an ongoing thing.
Anything, I don't have any comments,
I'm assuming
anything?
it's consistent with what we've done in the past, we're just bringing it forward.
It is.
Math looks pretty similar to what we've done before.
Yep.
Okay. No questions, no comments?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thanks. Next is reference resolution, it's R 21-20 resolution to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the town of Verona to complete, that's the study at Goose Lake.
Motion to approve.
And I'll second it, staff.
So this is a study that we're gonna have with Goose Lake, or with the town of Verona about Goose Lake. Goose Lake is just west of our city limits, and it has a tendency, when we get large rain events, it backs up across Fitchburg Road. We're participating with them, even though the facility is wholly on their property, we do contribute stormwater to that facility, so we wanna be part of the solution, and it impacts our facilities. So this is a cooperative agreement to do an RFP to get a study to see if we can make some improvements and limit the flooding at Fitchburg Road. This one, just so you know, when it gets to council, it is a budget amendment because we thought we were gonna have a $10,000 grant, and we do not. So instead of being 10,000 City of Fitchburg, 10,000 Town of Verona, and 10,000 grant, it's gonna be 15 and 15,000 Fitchburg and Town of Verona.
And the stormwater utility has sufficient funds within the current year to pay for it.
Got it, so we've got funds and it's basically a $5,000 change.
Exactly.
No question, no discussion?
With the, just because I know exactly where it is, just because we're dealing with water is, you might have already answered this. In reference to grants or the DNR or Dane County, do they have a cat in this fight or not really?
Not really, not into the study. We, maybe if we were gonna if we came up with a solution, we maybe could apply for a grant for that solution, you know, the actual construction portion. I think at this point, that's where we're at is, you know, depending on what the solution is, we could look and see if there's grant funding available for that. They'll be involved with the study, the DNR, for sure, but not in the funding.
Food for thought, yeah, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you, sir. Next is ordinance 2020-0-6, responsible bidding ordinance. She
Motion
moved
to
it,
approve.
I seconded.
And then, Tom, I gave you a form for
Staff.
this one.
So, Mike, I think we'll have the speakers first.
Do you want the speakers first? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Whoever is speaking, if they could sit in far, oh yeah, you can do that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You look a little familiar, a little bit familiar. Yeah. I gotta have you, both of you would introduce yourself with an address and then, go ahead.
Sure, I'll start and then I'll hand it over to Tristan and I'm sure we'll be under 6 minutes. My name is Andrew Dish. I live at 8945 Pine Hollow Place, Madison. I'm here representing the North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters. This ordinance is about flexibility, options, and discretion for local bodies of government. It's also about protecting the integrity of public works and the taxpayer. Generally, public construction projects are competitively bid and awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. However, Wisconsin case law and statute offer very little guidance on what the word responsible really means. As a result, many public bodies are reluctant to award work to anyone other than the lowest bidder, even if there is good reason to believe the low bidder may end up costing taxpayers more in the long run due to poor work quality, project delays, safety hazards, and change orders. While low cost is the first priority, value is essential. You get what you pay for. Everybody knows that. Most of the criteria that you see in this ordinance requires a bidder to confirm that they are in compliance with current employment and labor laws, OSHA safety standards, unemployment and workers' compensation requirements. If a contractor skirts the law, they shouldn't be rewarded with a competitive advantage to win a bid over contractors that play by the rules. It's really that simple. Similar ordinances have been adopted in the state, around the state, including the city of Superior, Douglas County, and more locally just last month in the village of Blue Mounds. I was in Blue Mounds when they adopted the ordinance. They have a new village hall that is going out to bid. They intentionally adopted this ordinance because they knew that this is a large capital project. Capital projects don't avail themselves often in that city. They were asking taxpayers for this investment. They only had one shot to do it, and they had to get it done right. So they adopted this ordinance to protect themselves in advance of putting probably the largest capital project out to bid that will in past 100 years and 100 years in the future. It also passed unanimously in Brown County, which is the home of Green Bay, so it's been hardly controversial for the municipalities that have adopted it around the state. It passed last night at Public Works 4-0. I want to speak to the apprenticeship provision that you'll see as an amendment later tonight. Apprenticeship is the gold standard. It's in the best city of interest of the city to adopt this. First, it will only apply to contracts over $500,000, which means that the complexity of those type of jobs require that the job be done right. It also means that it will protect public safety of the workers in an inherently dangerous profession to avoid tragic outcomes like what happened in Sun Prairie a few summers ago when contractors are not properly vetted. It also serves the public because we should invest in companies that invest in their workforce, especially in light of the skills gap that we're all experiencing and the workforce shortages, especially in the trades. So on the topic of apprenticeship, I want to hand it over to Tristan Greer, who will speak next. He's in an apprenticeship program right now, the Carpenter's Apprenticeship Program, and he's going to talk about his experience being an apprentice.
May I ask a couple questions?
Should we?
I'm gonna have him speak first and then we'll circle back, sure.
All right, good afternoon or evening. My name is Tristan Greer. I live at 1035 Emerald Street in Madison, Greenbush area. So I'm 36. I went through the Urban League to get into the trades. I wanted to be an electrician, but I ended up being a carpenter, best decision of my life. No, I'm a first year apprentice, and with that, I'm learning more and more than I've ever learned in life. You know, I could say that I knew how to bam a nail into a piece of wood over and over. I think we all do, but through the apprenticeship, it teaches you that. Recently, I've just completed the OSHA 20s and a Pro 10 class as part of my apprenticeship, and that Pro 10 class is specifically to teaching you respect on and off the job site, so there's no swearing and doing all the other unforeseen things that people would probably do if they have not been through the training. The safety is a big part of what I believe in. I've worked for other I've worked for other companies that did not care about safety. This program cares about safety, or we're being taught. I work for Lunda. Lunda is a bridge building company, and that's one thing that they preach all the time. Being an apprentice, I'm learning how to do flooring or doors, putting in a doorknob or correctly, you know. And so I don't have to go onto a site and not know what needs to be done. You know what I mean? So I can go out and get a job somewhere else without the training that that the union is teaching me as an apprentice. But I won't do as good. I won't know as much. And it's 4 years. Within 4 years, I'm sorry if this is out of sort, but I look at it like sports with college. You know, you go through your 4 years of college, you'll know more as a pro, you know, and that's how I look at being an apprentice. You're learning so much, and it's 16 weeks that we got to do it. It's rigorous, it's long, but it's needed, you know. So when we get out there with those big companies that invest in us to do their job, they know that they're not getting some half-done job. So we know the rules. We're getting taught that. The teachers are there as an apprentice. The teachers that's teaching the apprentices are there to teach us what they know. They've been through it umpteen decades, you know, and we're just soaking it all in. It's a small field when it comes to guys getting into it, because I don't know why people are not joining the union, you know. For me, it's a life-changing event. More money, more self-worth, you know, more responsibility, and I'm earning it as an apprentice, and soon I'll be big enough to be building the city of Madison. So, yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
Thanks. Questions?
So, a couple of questions. So I'm assuming they'll, or how are we gonna be for time here?
Time isn't an issue, his body just needs to vet this.
Okay.
I'm not gonna.
This is specifically for carpentry?
No, it would apply to all public works contracts let under the low bid law. So that's going to include horizontal roadwork and vertical capital projects. It's only triggered when a contract exceeds $250,000. So there's going to be some trades, or there's going to be some projects that don't fall, you know, that fall below that amount, that will not be impacted by this ordinance.
So this is gonna affect any of our civil engineering projects then?
It doesn't affect any service related, it would just be construction work. So any sort of engineering work or contractual work for, by a consultant, it wouldn't impact. It would be strictly construction work.
One of the challenges that I see is limited resources to get that work done, period, right now. Is this going to have any impact on that?
I would ask Mike to speak to that, and he has made some edits to the document that was originally proposed with that in mind, so I'll let Mike speak to that.
Okay.
Should we finish with these speakers first, though?
You have anything else? With these two fellows?
I'm good.
No, I'm good right now.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. While he's coming up, what did this go to besides, I know it went to Public Works.
Public Works.
Anywhere else?
I don't believe so.
No,
Right.
Public Works was 3-1.
3 to
The
1?
vote was 3-1.
3 to 1 there?
Yeah.
In Public Works?
No, it was 4-0. There was an amendment that was 3-1, and then a main.
Oh, you're right. The amendment was 3-1.
That was
You're right.
3 to 1, and the final vote was
4-0.
4-2?
Thank you.
0.
4-0. Okay, 4-0, okay. Okay. Your question?
So do you want me just to let you know what I think about it? So
Yes.
first, I just want to state clearly that I'm for apprenticeship. I don't have anything against apprenticeship. I think it's a need, especially with the skills gap in the trades. I think that it's fulfilling that need. But my concern is we have a very competitive marketplace, and we're seeing that in our bids. And I'm just not convinced that it might have an impact. We already are having trouble getting, you know, competitive bids. The Burn project is a perfect example. And so we're trying to attract new people from outside in that might not meet all these requirements. I think as it's written, I don't have any problem with it. The amendment is what I'm talking about, that I'm concerned about maybe having an impact. The original document, I vetted that through numerous contractors, and I'm convinced that that doesn't have any negative impact on our competitive bidding environment. I'm not sure that the apprenticeship will have a negative. I'm not sure that it won't, you know. So that's my concern is we're in a very, very tight market, and we're seeing escalating prices, and I just don't want anything else to escalate them. So that's why I originally drafted it with the apprenticeship out. It wasn't because I'm opposed to apprenticeship, it was because I was concerned about the implications to our costs.
Do we have the option of having a preference for that as part of our decision, so that we have the option of inviting everyone in for this, but saying all things considered equal, and I'm just gonna make up a number, that there's a 1% preference for that particular contract, so that way we can stay within our budget, we can honor the program, and yet not restrict our ability to invite all organizations in.
Well, what's reviewed once we receive bids is we determine low qualified bid. This ordinance would determine in part what would be qualified. So if we did state in the ordinance that, you know, the apprenticeship program would be a requirement, then we would have to weigh that as in the qualifications.
So there's not a way of making that an optional instead of a mandatory?
Not the way it's written.
Okay.
Right.
And before us, correct me if I'm wrong, Misty, before us is the original city ordinance. Public Works had a change, but I just soon have the Alder or the council speak to that. I'm not speaking to that. Am I thinking right that the way all I'm saying is the way it's written now from the city's perspective is what's in front of us?
What's in front of you is the version that Mike put together based on his recommendations.
Yep.
So it does not include an apprenticeship requirement, which we know will be discussed at the council level.
And I know it will be,
But
and
it's not
it's
here.
just kind of going there with that piece. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Mhm.
First of all, do we need to take action on this within this body?
You can defer to council,
We
or you
can,
can take action for or against the written ordinance.
And as we're kind of getting into that potentially double negative conversation, right? So if we, for discussion's sake, accepted and voted in support of the language that we see in front of us, are we saying that we are generating an ordinance that would make it mandatory for the apprenticeship
No.
program?
You are
Okay.
not. The apprenticeship's not in what we're voting on right now.
There are amendments that could come to the floor in council that could change what this body votes on.
Then I would defer to council.
So right now we have a motion on the floor to approve. So
Which
you would
you
like
made.
to
Yeah.
change your motion to send to council without a
Well, you'd
recommendation?
have to rescind your other motion, yes, and make a motion to defer to council.
Without a recommendation.
From a formality perspective, do we have the opportunity to discuss this here?
well, the thing
I
is,
just kinda
it's
wanna
like
see- I mean,
it's like and I'm not trying to shortcut it, I'm not at all, but it just seems to me that I'm even kind of leaning towards your deferring it to the council due to the fact that we are gonna discuss it, it's coming up on the agenda in front of us, and we can discuss the whole thing there, at that point. I mean, I'm good with that.
Yeah, so back to your point, I'm completely on board with apprenticeship programs as well. My son is in the trades, he was an apprentice, I understand that. I also understand the condition of the market right now and the tough decisions we've got to make.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I am going to withdraw my proposal or my motion to approve, and I'm going to defer to council.
So then separately, you're going to make a motion to,
I make a
Defer to
motion to
council
defer
without
to
recommendation.
council on ordinance 2020-0-06.
without a recommendation. Very good.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Now, we still have to vote on that,
Correct.
and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now, do we still have to have another motion?
No,
Or
Nope.
that's it.
No.
That's it.
The other
Okay.
one
So
was
now we gotta
rescinded.
close the business.
Let's
Yeah.
get going.
Announcements?
Yep.
And then-
Announcements.
Motion
Yes, we have,
Announcements first.
our next meeting is February 11th, I believe, and it might start at 6 because there's one topic I want to get on here and get it off my plate. And Misty knows what it is. It's not a big deal. We'll just talk about it. Maybe we may start at 6 next time, If, we may not, we'll just see how it goes. But the next meeting's February 11th. We'll say for right now,
6:30.
6:30. Be aware though, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.